So, have you ever had a moment where everything just shifted? Like, just like that? Where your perception of the world, cracked open and you felt something bigger than yourself? Some call it an epiphany, and some call it a spiritual awakening. But here's the big question: are spiritual awakenings actually real? Or are they just psychological tricks of the mind? Let's get to it. Hey Star, my name is Batia from Solar Alignment, where we help you align to the light. So what is a spiritual awakening anyway, right? So a spiritual awakening is often described as a deep realization that there's more to life than what you actually see around you, your so-called physical world. It can feel like a sudden shift in your awareness, an overwhelming sense of unity or connection, a deep, deep inner peace, or a breakdown of the ego and the identity. That can actually be scary. Speaking of overwhelming sense of unity or oneness and connection, when I had my spiritual awakening in 2012, in what seemed like about 5 minutes, and what I was shown from the universe, I had a feeling, a knowing that I was a cell inside of God's body. But the conclusion that it was inside of God's body was the last realization. I was fasting. I was raw vegan at the time. I was trying to be, but I just wasn't eating a lot of food. So I was just eating this little bit of fruit, and I think I had my raw kale and my water. And I was out in the sun one day, and my children were running around. Well, one of my children were running around in the yard, and the other one was little, and she was sitting next to me. And I was just, chilling out in the sun, I guess. And the sun was overhead. And I had a feeling, I just was looking around at different objects in the environment, the poles, the big, the black wires that, go in between the trees and stuff like that, carry our electricity. And I was looking at them, and I was looking around at the cars and just things. And I guess I was in a really, I would call a lucid state of mind. During that time, I had been fasting for probably a couple months during that time. Again, just eating a little bit of food, that day, but it was just living foods, and it wasn't a lot. I didn't actually mean to fast, but it was just a situation I was in. And yeah, after a couple months of doing that or something like that, I just had this moment where everything, it just showed me the truth. And it was like, I knew it was real. And I knew it was something that I didn't know before, if that makes any sense. And while I was having these realizations, with every realization, my spirit and my body just kept feeling more enlightened. It just kept saying wow, like I was just discovering more. It was like my mind was getting larger and larger. I'm trying to explain it. And I came to the conclusion that I am inside of a body. I just felt like I was living inside of somebody's body. That's how I felt. Because I was like, oh yeah, these wires, they remind me of like the veins in our body, and the cars, riding on the road, they reminded me of like, blood, I guess your blood vessels, and, when, the red blood cells and all that travel through your body. And I was just imagining, like, when we eat certain foods, how it blocks up, the veins in the body, just like cars will get blocked up on the road when they're driving, right? So my mind just kept going, like they say, as above, so below, right? So it was like outside of me, but inside of me at the same time, back and forth, outside, inside. And it just was a series of, revelations, if you will, kind of like the feeling of deja vu. So you know when you have deja vu, like you know what you're saying. Like if somebody was to ask you who's about to come around that corner, you know somebody's about to come around that corner. It's not like you made it up, right? So I knew I wasn't making it up. I knew what I was seeing was real, right? And I knew the state of my mind at the time. But I just couldn't believe the conclusions that I came to. Because if I'm a cell inside of God's body, then that means, well, what am I? And then it's like, oh my God. And it was, when I tell you, my entire life has been changed from that moment. And this was over, well, it was like 13 years ago now, right? And I'm recording this video in 2025. And so that was 2012. And yeah, that was real. And so I can attest to this sudden shift of perception in a moment that can change a person's life. So some people experience a spiritual awakening gradually, right? Through meditation, sometimes through hardship or even loss. Others describe sudden life-changing moments where everything clicks, like what happened to me. But is there any science behind this? So what's the psychology behind awakening? So psychologists have long studied altered states of consciousness, like peak experiences, ego dissolution, or flow states. According to psychologist Abraham Maslow, peak experiences, or moments of deep insight and connectedness, are not only real, but they're essential to human flourishing. So some other researchers tie spiritual awakenings to what's called a transformational experience, a moment so profound that it permanently shifts a person's worldview. And that's what happened to me. When I grew up, reared and raised all the way up until probably my 20s, actually 30s, when I had my spiritual awakening, I was raised, reading the Old Testament, right? Reading the Bible like many people. I mean, obviously not everyone has the Bible as their book of, religious authority, etc. But many people do, right? In various religions. And so I did as well. And mine was like strictly Old Testament, very, matter of fact, like Orthodox, basically, right? And it's nothing wrong with that, right? Or anything. I'm not even saying that now. But after I had my spiritual awakening, and I was 34 at the time, I believe, right? So I'm telling my age. Everything changed for me in an instant. And I remember going back into the house after I just gathered myself together, because I was still conscious. I was still, all that good stuff. Thank the Most High that I did not have to have, what they call an NDE to have these experiences, because some people go through major situations where their spirit goes, I'm just saying, out of the body, and yeah, they experience and learn a lot about who they are. That all is one, all is God, and all that. And if you have an NDE, which means it's near-death experience, then you come back, right? Because it's near, right? And so mine wasn't major like that. It was just more gradual, but it was a gradual peeling away of the ego, the identity, really the body in and of itself, because I was fasting. And so what I'm saying is that it changed, that experience changed my life. Like I still, read the Bible. I still will quote the Bible because it has a lot of actual literal facts in it, and metaphysical facts. And there are, some things I would say that need to be edited because there's some things that have been hidden from the Bible and things like that. However, there's a lot of truth to it But I now can see more of the metaphysics, not just of the Bible, but of life itself. And it's like that experience, and then just continuing and eating the living plants, because that's what kind of brought it to me, right? Between the sun and the plants. Remember, the sun is inside of the plants. I'm not saying every plant is good for you, but if it's digestible, it doesn't have a lot of oxalates and stuff like that, it's probably another video. You know, it's a good digestible fruit, maybe not too starchy. I know people love starch, but you don't have to, you know, have it. But if it's like a nice, you know, like berries or watery fruits, and, you know, a nice, you know, salad leaf or something like that, that's light and doesn't give you any of the other negative aspects that could be in some of these really strong greens. These foods carry light. They literally have sunlight in them. And there's something to be said about, you know, photosynthesis and how it affects the human body, right? So maybe that's another video as well. And so all those things, they did affect me. And now to today, I'm different. You know, I have this channel, Solar Alignment, you know, where we align the soul to the light, you know, and that's like part of my mission now. So before, I was more religious, and I still, like I said, I still am. I still keep the holy days of like the Bible as best as I can, but I'm just not as strict as I used to be. And I'm not saying that that's a good thing, but you know, I have days, especially on my like high, like fruit days, and especially when I started eating, you know, I started eating my salads more and my, you know, my living greens. I have days where, you know, I just have downloads all the time, and I'm in this mental and spiritual space of resonating with spiritual energy. It's like, you know, you are the book. You have the book within you. All the information that is in the books, you are able to access. But you have to get your body in the state of mind and being that is able to access this information. But because of that change in my life, it's like I can see who I used to be and I can see who I am now. And though I'm the same person, you know, it's just the layers. It's been peeled away. And it's almost like, it's like a saying, like, I don't know, like when you see it, you can't unsee it. I was trying to think of another saying, but I guess that fits, right? It's like, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you know the truth, you cannot unknow it, right? And so for me, absolutely yes. Spiritual transformations are real. They change your life. They're not just this quote, mental, you know, thing, whatever that is, as if that would disqualify something because it's mental. You know, you ever heard anybody say the universe is mental? It is. The universe is God's, is Source's imagination in action, is God's own dream in action, and we're the characters. That's what's really going on. And that's what I have learned since that day in 2012, all the way up until now. I've been studying this, not just in books, not actually necessarily in books at all, really, but in practical applications of my life. Again, because the information is here for us, right? We are connected to the author of the book. Why? Because we are Source itself, experiencing reality from this specific point of view, right? Your specific point of view, my specific point of view. I'm Source, I'm God as Batia. You're God as you. Exactly. Right? Put that in the comments. I'm God as, put your name, because it is true, right? And so this is how the spiritual, awakening that I had changed me like permanently. It's not something that goes away. It's just when you see it, you cannot unsee it, right? And isn't that exciting? And if you've never had that experience, no worries. First of all, subscribe, stay on the channel, because, I'm here to help you out with that, because maybe I can teach you some things. You can learn some things here that can help you be on your path to that. But what I'm saying is that it's not a rush, right? It's not a race, right? Like where are you running to? Like yourself? That's where you're running. I watched Oprah show a long time ago, and Jim Carrey was on there talking about his manifestation. How he had like a $10 million check, I think it was, in his pocket. I don't know if you saw that or heard about that. And he had it in his pocket for years, and finally it came true. And he was speaking about, he said a phrase of, I was doing a lot of this studying about manifestation and, whatever the word he said. He said, how they say, wherever you go, there you are, right? Wherever you go, there you are. Like, there's not a race. Like, we don't have to compete. I had a spiritual awakening, and so this person has to feel like they do. I mean, you know what I mean? You don't have to feel like you have to compete to have this major awakening. But what I will say is that it's the human being's right and birthright to know who you really are. It's your birthright. I would say it's what God wants you to do, because that's why God, Source, right? And there are several names, right? From the Most High, Yah, right? The I Am, right? The all that is, right? The essence of existence. This Source wants you to have the awakening so that you can remember that you are it, having a human experience. That's what the game is about. That's what I would say. That's from my perspective and from what I've been studying in my own life and things like that. And maybe hear, from others that we can, corroborate on that. God wants you to remember that you are Source, having the experience as the human being, that you will always be here, that there was never a time where you weren't here, and there's never a time where you won't be here, right? And if you get into the actual, the Hebrew and the biblical and all that, right? Again, I told you that's part of my foundation. I won't even say it's my former self, but it's my foundation. So now I'm like more rounded off with the metaphysical as well, right? But part of, that knowing of the Creator's name, right? If we get into the, the Yod, Hey, the Wav, and the Hey, right? It's or even the original one where it's the I am that I am, right? The Ayeh, Asher, Ayeh, it's the, I am that I am. I will be that I will be. I am the essence of existence, right? Like, I'll always be here, right? I exist because I exist. Like, that's the Creator's name, the essence of existence. And I know, not everyone believes in a source, right? Or a God, right? We have that also in the human experience. And I mean, look, I have respect for wherever a person is in their life, because there are certain circumstances, right, that brought you to where you are and where your understanding is. But what I would say is this: there is an origin, right, where we come from, and that origin, that being, is a sentient and conscious being that created everything, right? And not only created everything, but really projected everything from its own self. Because the word creation makes one think that God is here and the creation is separate, right? We look at it kind of in human terms, right? It's not that way. It's a projection, okay? Its source is here, and there's light, there's emanation, and there is a shining of light within its own self as a reflection. The reflection is you. You are the reflection of Source. You are not a separate creation of Source. You are Source in a reflection. And everyone you know is as well. And so the spiritual awakening becomes relevant to the human being to make sure that the human being is not caught up in human experiences to the point where it cannot see that all is one, right? We are to know that there is no separation, that what I do to myself, to my cells, affects you. And that's what the spiritual awakening will do for you and has done for me and anyone else. But again, it's not a race. It's a gradual opening to the truth of who we are. Of who we are, because we are one. And so, is it real? It's absolutely real. And it will change your life in an instant or even in a progression. But once it does, you can never unsee the truth. Across cultures and religions, spiritual awakenings have been recorded for centuries. Buddha under the Bodhi tree, Moses receiving the 10 Commandments, Saul on the road to Damascus. Mystics in every corner of the globe report similar visions, insights, and transformations. They describe the collapse of the ego, a sense of timelessness, and a connection to all living things. And by the way, everything is living. Everything is alive. Everything may not have the what we call breath of life in it, but everything is a living member of God's body. So these experiences, though, are so consistent across time and geography that many believe that they point to something beyond psychology, something actually really spiritual. So, are spiritual awakenings real? You know, I would say yes, of course. But that depends on what or how you define real. Are they neurological events? Well, yes, the brain does play a role. But does that make them less meaningful? No, not necessarily. If a spiritual awakening leads someone to live with more compassion, more openness, more awareness, more purpose, like, does it matter whether it's metaphysical or psychological? Maybe it's both. Maybe what we call spiritual is only a deeper part of human consciousness that we're only just beginning to understand in modern times. Because again, there's nothing new under the sun. So at the end of the day, spiritual awakenings are real to those who experience them. They can't be measured with a ruler or seen under a microscope, but they can, and they do, change lives. And maybe that's real enough. So, do you believe in spiritual awakenings? Have you had one yourself? Let us know in the comments. And remember to like and subscribe and to become one of our stars and constellations, because we're stars because we shine, and we're constellations because we gather. Hit the bell for more deep dives into mind and meaning and the mystery of life, and to learn more about the power that you hold as the God that you are.